Howdy everyone, and welcome to the Real Geek TV YouTube channel. My name is James Eatock, and today we're going to take a look at how the character of Janine Melnitz changed across the many seasons of the Real Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters, my favourite movie of all time. The Real Ghostbusters, in my opinion, the best written cartoon of the 80s. Well, at least the first season and the syndicated season were, and I guess that's why we're here today, to talk about how one of the most impressively written cartoons of the 1980s took a surprising nosedive. And we can do that by focusing on one specific character, Janine Melnitz. It's fair to say that Annie Potts stole many a scene she was in throughout the original Ghostbusters movie, and given the stellar cast of comedic actors around her, this was all the more impressive. She was able to punctuate much of her dialogue with the memorable, delightful and character-defining Brooklyn accent. Janine throughout the movie was nobody's fool, and I think many of us fell in love with the character. When Geek were tasked with bringing Ghostbusters to the small screen in the form of an animated series, due to likeness rights, characters could not resemble the actors whom they were based upon. This was literally the edict given to Gabby Payne, who designed the main cast of characters for the show. Another reason for the design changes is that Geek wanted the characters to stand on their own rather than be animated versions of the actors. This allowed for some highly unique visual interpretations for animation, a few of which surprised the original actors.
Early on, when we knew there was going to be a TV series, we were shown character sketches. And I was probably most shocked of all because my character came out blonde.
I'm definitely the fat one, and I know that.
When it came to designing Janine Melnitz for animation, Gabby took the character's personality and brought that to the forefront of the animation model, and Janine's memorable, wonderfully pronounced cowlick was based on Gabby's own hair at the time. Len Jansen and Chuck Menville, who were in charge of the first season, which aired on ABC, wrote the original series Bible to the Real Ghostbusters. Based on her appearance in the movie, the pair described Janine Melnitz as follows. The Ghostbusters' secretary, a small bespectacled young woman whose pleasant features belie her shrill nasal voice and thick Brooklyn accent. Janine is a habitual gum chewer and bubble blower who tries to be polite and proper to the clients. Oh, how she tries. But her fuse is short, real short, and she always winds up losing her cool and letting it all hang out, New York cabbie style. Janine may be petite, but she's a real tiger when she gets her dander up. Despite her crusty attitude, she's actually fond of her 4 nutty employers. After all, she's been with them from the start. But she doesn't patronise them or live in awe of their newfound fame. No way. To Janine, this is just another 9-to-5 job, and no matter how chaotic things around Ghostbusters headquarters become, her main priorities are her coffee breaks, lunch hour and overtime. Janine is especially attracted to the shy egghead, Egon. It's the old story of opposites attract, but these two are so opposite that there is always some awkward foul-up coming between them. I think we can all agree that Len Jansen and Chuck Menville did a perfect job describing her character. Any writer wanting to work on the animated series really did have a wealth of material to pull from. Writers of the series rarely had her as a background character, and even if she were in 1 or 2 scenes, much like the movie, she would often steal the show. Writers such as J. Michael Straczynski, Michael Reeves and Richard Mueller really did do a fantastic job of utilising Janine in their respective episodes. Actress Laura Summer was cast as the voice of Janine Melnitz. It would be an understatement to say that she did a fantastic job bringing Janine's character and personality to the animated series.
Ah! This had better be good, Janine.
Slimer brought back this. Ray's in trouble. And if you're not downstairs and ready to go in 5 minutes, you're fired.
She threatened to fire me.
You be careful. The woman doesn't make idle threats.
Laura was not only able to mimic Annie Potts' Brooklyn accent, but she also made the role her own, lending a great deal of gravitas to the character when required. There were naturally moments of hot-headedness and hilarity that we had seen from the character on the big screen, but Laura also brought a wealth of softly spoken dialogue. It's genuinely hard to imagine anyone else in that role.
Forget it. I wasn't hired to take these kinds of risks, Dr. Venkman.
Janine, we need you.
Yes, you do. I want a raise.
Sure.
And more time off.
Oh, okay.
And I want some privileged information about Egon. I think he's cute. Fair?
Fair.
Sadly, nothing lasts forever. Let me explain. The Real Ghostbusters first season on ABC had certain restrictions placed upon it, but it was a success because those working on the show were basing it on a very successful movie, and Deke still managed to get numerous things into the show, such as the genuinely first terrifying reveal of the demon What. Still gives me nightmares. The syndicated season, which many, including myself, would argue was far better than the network show, had very few restrictions placed upon it. Thus, the initial batch of 78 episodes flourished because the show reflected the movie in a number of ways. It's as simple as that. As with any winning formula, what do the people in charge, whom are barely associated with the product, want to do? Why change it, of course? Clearly, the number one cartoon in syndication needed altering. Due to the success of the first 78 episodes of The Real Ghostbusters, the show was naturally picked up for a second season, on ABC. Thus from this point on it would become a network show, and the network had some changes. Enter the Q5 Corp, a consultancy firm of advertising, marketing and research professionals and psychologists hired by ABC to improve The Real Ghostbusters.
You want us to do what?
Q5 based its recommendations for improvement on information culled from standard psychological studies which the company filed in computer databanks. This information would, apparently, help writers develop concepts, characters and dialogue that would be appealing to the target audience. You know, the same target audience that had already made The Real Ghostbusters a ratings winner and a merchandising giant. According to Q5, they would only ever make suggestions. ABC, the network, would be the ones to enforce those recommended changes. Len Jansen and Chuck Menville, who fronted the show once more come season 2, agreed to all of the changes, which, even to this day, is a little disappointing to hear. J. Michael Straczynski was the most vocal opponent to Q5, having read their report on the cartoon series and participated in a Q5 seminar, publicly stating that he believed the consultancy firm to be a truly insidious organisation and that a lot of their research and theories reinforced stereotypes, both sexist and racist. Straczynski stated that Q5 were not helping television, instead they were diminishing it. At the time, writer Michael Reeves stated that he had not enjoyed working on the second season due to the show purposely containing less satire and less subtle, sophisticated verbal humour. According to Straczynski, he and Reeves sat in the meeting with Q5, dumbstruck at the recommendations that were being presented to them, one of which was the removal of Ray Stantz, Q5 believing him not to be of benefit to the show. Thankfully, that was a step too far in the eyes of Len Jansen and Chuck Menville. However, ABC wanted certain changes enforced. The first, frankly horrific change was the removal of Lorenzo Music as Peter Venkman and Laura Summer as Janine Melnitz. Like the actors around them, Arsenio Hall, Maurice LaMarche and Frank Welker, their voices defined the movie's cartoon counterparts. However, according to those that worked on the show, Bill Murray was unhappy with his character sounding like Garfield and requested the role be recast. Of course, famously and somewhat ironically, Bill Murray would later play Garfield in the 2004 movie, with Lorenzo Music having passed away. The decision to replace Laura Summer wasn't at the request of Annie Potts or anything like that, it was for an incredibly frustrating reason. Q5 and the ABC network had decided that Janine Melnitz needed to be a motherly figure, and as the Season 2 series Bible states, Janine turned out to be the first season's least successful, least liked character according to audience testing. This reaction seems to be the result of several factors: her voice, which has a nasal New York quality that frequently comes off as whining, and her appearance, which was interpreted as harsh due to her sharply pointed eyeglasses and hairdo. In a child's eyes, there is nothing soft or nurturing about her. She's brassy, strident, hard-edged. As a result, she alienates the audience. For the second season, Janine is being revamped. Visually, she will get a softer, more feminine look, and her voice will be recast with a warmer, friendlier sound. The New York accent will remain, but the whiny quality is history. In its place will be a sense of humour, something she has never displayed before. Janine will play more of a mother to Slimer rather than harangue him. There is a genuine bond of affection between these two now. They even become conspiratorial at times. Last season, Janine was often played as a foil rather than as an active participant. Then she would complain about her situation, which resulted in whining. This season, she should be more directly involved in the goings-on. Not to the point of strapping on a proton pack and riding with the guys, although she's done that in more than one episode, but by being more of an actuator on the home front rather than a victim. Although Janine administrates the office at headquarters, answering phones, radioing emergency orders to the guys out in the field, typing all the paperwork, etc., she does not cook or clean or do any of that domestic doo-doo. She refers to HQ as Ghostbusters Central. Her heart's in the right place when it comes to her job, but Janine is just a little disorganised. Her desk and filing system are a mess. She has to wade through a ton of stuff to find a memo or address, but find it she does. She's an invaluable asset to the Ghostbusters team. Janine is fond of her 4 employers, but is especially attracted to the shy egghead Egon. It's the old story of opposites attract. She sees Egon as a man of great mystery. Plus, he's kind of cute, but he doesn't give her a tumble. This doesn't discourage Janine. She just keeps finding opportunities to compliment him, give him little gifts, invite him to the movies, etc. But she's no Sadie Hawkins and stops short of throwing herself at him. You know, reading that back, it's hard not to call bullshit on many of the concerns that have been raised. My memories of Janine when watching the show as a child was that she was a no-nonsense, strong and determined character. I never considered her whiny, and I'm hazarding a guess that very few did, often because her complaints were justified and she never ever felt like just the receptionist.
If you don't lay off this door, I'll show you a kickback!
Heck, reading the first season and syndicated description of the character makes no mention of the tasks she carries out, only that she gets things done. However, the new Janine's administrative tasks are described in full, and rather than be good at her job, it's stated that she's now disorganised. Honestly, go back through all of that new and improved character description, and it feels like Janine's character was being devolved. But, as mentioned in the updated series Bible, the character design was also going to be changed, and this was equally as painful as the change in the voice. Here I'm going to showcase the differences between her original character design and the revised one. I should mention that this particular model sheet comes with a bunch of notes which I'm hiding for the moment, as one in particular will probably make your jaw drop. Firstly, when comparing the two models, I think it's fair to say that the original is a much more striking character design. Even the pose is more eye-catching when compared to the reserved pose of the redesign. But, as we can see, the artist softened all of the elements. Her hair is softer, she now has round glasses because pointed ones are clearly problematic. Her pupils are larger so that she can look doe-eyed rather than stern and assertive. The earrings are smaller, even the earrings weren't safe. Her neck is shorter, no necklace, no bracelets, no belt, and her skirt is longer. Okay, so those are the original notes. Oh no, wait, I missed a few. Get ready for this. Generally less harsh and slutty, and her face and expressions are prettier. I mean, what on earth were they thinking? I don't think anyone ever looked at the original character design and thought, slut. Again, combined with Janine's personality in the first and syndicated season, she was a strong-willed individual.
I'm warning you guys, I'm getting mad.
But hey, these changes needed to be made to make the series better, right? Well, no. J. Michael Straczynski, whose vision for the show really did guide it to become a ratings winner across those first 78 episodes, walked away from production, frustrated with the changes being imposed on the series. Other changes I have yet to mention include giving Slimer the ability to talk clearer,
Spookum's gone! Spookum's gone!
and Ray's character model being redesigned so that he was slimmer. When watching the series back from this point on, Janine's character does feel quite unimportant. Whilst not relegated to the background, she is less of a scene stealer and more of a character that helps with any exposition required. Somewhat uniquely, the choice was made to have specific episodes from Season 1 and the syndicated season featuring Lorenzo Music and Laura Summer redubbed by Dave Coulier and Kath Soucie. Thus, the pair re-recorded dialogue for Peter Venkman and Janine Melnitz. And for fun, though it's not fun for me, here are a few comparisons.
Ghostbusters, if it goes boo, we know what to do. No, ma'am, this is the real Ghostbusters, not Ghosts R Us.
Never mind.
Hey, who is Ghosts R Us anyway? I've had 20 calls for them today. Ghostbusters, if it goes boo, we know what to do. No, ma'am, this is the real Ghostbusters, not Ghosts R Us.
Never mind.
Hey, who is Ghosts R Us anyway? I've had 20 calls for them today.
Almost no intellect reading.
Egon, Ray, excuse me, but could we move this gig along before all this chocolate makes me break out?
Almost no intellect reading.
Excuse me, Egon, Ray, but could we move this gig along before all this chocolate makes me break out?
Whilst ratings continue to be strong, the quality of the show was never quite the same again. And somewhat unsurprisingly, Janine was redesigned again, this time to reflect her look in the sequel movie Ghostbusters 2. I should say that with this redesign, some of Janine's long-lost vigour came back, although it was never quite the same as how the character was originally depicted. It may have helped that studios like Tokyo Movie Shinsha were delivering rather nice, expressive animation on the character. But don't get too comfortable, because a season or two later, they redesigned Janine again. Her pointed glasses returned, hurrah, and her hair was clearly somewhat of a callback to her original design. But with Kath Soucie still as the voice, the character just didn't feel right. During this time, J. Michael Straczynski was asked to return to the series, and he did. But one story he wanted to tell more than any other was actually an act of pure genius. Rather than do what most shows do with the recasting of an actor or the redesign of a character and simply ignore the fact, Straczynski decided to address it head on. And so with the episode Janine, You've Changed, it was explained that Janine's differing appearance over the years had been a result of a pact she had made with a spirit named Makeoveris Lotsabugs. This episode rather wonderfully addresses the specifics of the changes, with Egon even referencing her long-forgotten Brooklyn accent. Somewhat amusingly, when the script was written and the episode was being storyboarded, they were still working to her design from Ghostbusters 2, as can be seen here in these storyboards. With Straczynski writing, it should come as no surprise that this episode is rather wonderful, culminating in an epic moment of choice for Janine, followed by a lovely final scene with she and Egon sat watching the sunrise. Bizarrely, for the last few episodes of the series, they changed Janine's design again, although this version of Janine feels more like a joke had by the character designers in the dying days of the cartoon. For here, we see Janine with a huge mound of hair with no style to it whatsoever. These final few episodes saw her suited up on occasion, but at this point the animation in the show was so hard to look at, I often tend to forget these final few seasons of The Real Ghostbusters even exist. Truthfully, and this is no disrespect to anyone that worked on the show after season 1 and the syndicated season, but I genuinely rarely go past those first 78 episodes when watching the series. Yes, I will skip to some of the better episodes from the later seasons, but as talented as they were on the series, Dave Coulier as Peter Venkman and Kath Soucie as Janine Melnitz never worked for me. The voices were far too different. Buster Jones, who replaced Arsenio Hall as Winston Zeddemore, did a very good job, but that initial voice cast, that was very, very special. To me, Lorenzo Music and Laura Summer were utterly irreplaceable. Regardless of the changes made, Janine Melnitz will always be remembered as the stern, Brooklyn-talking, no-nonsense fifth member of the Ghostbusters. We have much to be thankful for. Gabby Payne, Laura Summer, and the writers such as Straczynski, Reeves and Mueller, they all made Janine Melnitz one of the best remembered characters of 1980s animation. And yeah, this video may be somewhat biased as Laura Summer is a friend. No, not a social media friend, an actual friend, one that you can grab a coffee with. One of the loveliest things Laura has done over the years was invite me to a recording of the Garfield animated series she was working on back in 2012, where I got to meet and converse with the Frank Welker. This was before he had started attending conventions, so it was pretty magical. Plus I got to see him in the recording booth. That was magical. So, in short, Laura Summer is awesome. And that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.